Hey guys, welcome back. I am the Metal Jesus, and today, well, you may have noticed that I'm holding my guitar. Well, that's because I get a lot of questions about the guitars that I own. So for this video, I thought I would do something a little bit different and show you my favorite axes. This is going to be really cool. Let's take a look. All right, guys, well, I'm gonna start with my favorite guitar, and that is my 1981 Gibson Les Paul Custom. Now, I bought this used in the 90s, and at the time, this was by far the most expensive guitar I'd ever purchased. I paid about $800 for it, and it was very used. I went to a place called Trading Musician here in Seattle, and you'll notice that like the varnish on the neck was all worn down, and also it had some nicks in it, and it was kind of beat up. But the important thing is that this was a beaut to play. It was a pleasure to play the moment I picked it up. The action's really low on it. It's got that heavy metal sustain, and you know, it's just one of those guitars where I picked it up and I didn't want to put it down. It was so easy to create music from it, and so that's really a key component to me when buying a guitar is, do you want to pick it up and play it, you know? And this is definitely one of those kind of guitars. Now, I mentioned that the action's really low and it's kind of beat up. Now, I put gauge 10 strings on all my guitars. I like that because I tend to be a little bit more kind of a percussive guitar player. I'm actually more of a rhythm player than a lead guitar player. So I do put a little bit thicker gauges on my guitars, and that definitely helps with kind of the chunkiness of it. But yeah, I love this guitar. I need to go and have it kind of serviced because it's been sitting around for so long. It's definitely starting to show a little bit of rust, which really kind of bums me out. So I need to kind of have it tuned up, but I love this guitar so much. Next up in my collection is a 1990s Danelectro. Now, for those of you that don't know, the Danelectro actually was a kind of weird and sort of space age guitar, I believe in the 60s and 70s, and then it kind of had a resurgence in the 90s. And so we bought this one actually for my wife. My wife was thinking about playing guitar, and she wanted something kind of light and somewhat easy to play. And I think we paid about $300 for it. They're not expensive guitars, but this is a really fun and interesting guitar. It's very light. It almost feels like it's made out of space age material. I don't even know if it's made out of wood, to be honest with you. It's got a very kind of tinny sound, but it sounds total punk rock, especially with these pickups, because it wants to feedback all the time. And so it's kind of fun to play with it because you just kind of hold up to the speaker and you just let it go. You know, you're making all these whiny sounds. Definitely cool. Now, the thing about this though, is that I used to take guitar lessons from a jazz musician here in Seattle, and you know, he wasn't snobby, but he was definitely very experienced with jazz, and I was taking lessons from him and trying to learn some heavy metal and some shredding and stuff like that. But anyways, I brought this guitar with me on a lesson one time, and he was like, "What the hell are you playing that for?" But he took and played it, and he was blown away by it. And I'll tell you what, that means everything. That even sometimes cheap guitars can be really fun and interesting to play. And I actually had to kind of bug him to get it back. So you never know. But yeah, the Danelectro is a nice kind of backup guitar for me. The next guitar in my collection is another fantastic guitar. I bought just in the last couple of years because I was looking for a guitar to play on stage. If you play guitar in a band, you know that sometimes you don't play the most reputable clubs, and often when you're either loading in your gear or unloading it, sometimes you're unloading that in like dark alleys in the middle of the night, and it's very easy for equipment to get stolen. So instead of always taking my Les Paul to a gig, I was looking for something that I could afford to lose if it happened. That way I don't have to worry about it. So anyways, long story short, I bought this Ibanez, and I gotta tell you, another guitar I'm very happy with. I think I paid maybe $450 for this at the time. Ibanez guitars are great for metal because the necks are very fast, the action is very low, and they're just meant for speed and comfort. And so this is a guitar that actually, you know, for a low end kind of cheap guitar, I really enjoy playing with it. It's got really hot pickups on it. So again, with a lot of volume and a lot of distortion, this really cuts through everybody else, cuts through the drums and the bass and the vocals. So a really fun guitar to play and own. All right, next up in my arsenal of guitars, I have another really weird one. I like weird guitars. This is an Applause. I believe this is a 1970s or early 80s Applause. And these are very interesting acoustic guitars because they have this kind of space age plastic thing going on here. Also with this kind of cheap top, but these are very loud acoustic guitars and they're pretty much bulletproof. And again, when you're playing out at clubs, it's really nice to have a guitar that you can throw around and not really worry about. But yet it stays in tune. That's the number one thing that's most important to me. So we used to do a lot of gigs where a couple songs would have acoustic guitars in it. So again, it was really important for me to have like a gigging guitar for that. So, you know, and actually, you know, Applause guitars are nice. You know, they have their own sound. It's very bright. So not exactly great for studio, but perfect for gigging. So that's a quick look at my 4 guitars. Now I do have a couple others, like a classical nylon string guitar that I bought way back in the day, which is actually pretty fun to play, but it's buried in there, so we're not going to show it. But the thing is that, as you can tell, my main focus is playing out. And so, you know, I don't go for really expensive guitars. I go for guitars that stay in tune, sound good, and are fairly easy to play. That's what's important to me. And that also extends to my sound. So for instance, my amp, you know, a lot of people kind of tease me that I should have like this Mesa Boogie rectifier setup for my amp. I don't. Actually, I have a cheap Peavey 120 watt amp that we use in practice and also at live gigs. And I gotta tell you, it's really nice to have an amp that you can spill beer on or kick it and it still works and you don't have to worry about it. I didn't spend a lot of money on it. However, I will say though that the key to my tone is actually the Line 6 Pod 2 effects pedal that I use. And as a matter of fact, in my last couple of gigs, guitar players have come up to me afterwards and have been like, how are you getting such amazing tone out of such cheap stuff? Well, the Line 6 does a lot of that work. It actually models a bunch of different effects pedals and amplifiers. And then I dial it in with the Peavey amp, and honestly, you can get some pretty amazing results. So now, not everything sounds great, but I have my special little ingredients there for a live gig. And like I said, as long as it sounds good and as long as you're rocking and kicking ass, man, that's all that matters. So anyways, that's a quick look at my setup. I'd love to know, do you guys play instruments? Do you guys play guitar? I'd love to know what you play. Please post a comment down below. As always, I want to thank you for watching my channel and thank you for subscribing. Rock on. Hey, if you like all this guitar talk and you want to see me playing guitar with my band, well, I happen to have a couple pretty cool videos on my channel. I'm going to link to them down in the description below, so check them out.